In the culinary world, copper is a precious metal. Besides being a great conductor of heat, copper pots look good on the cooktop. To cut out a round blank, a craftsman places a centering disc on a copper sheet. He links it to a plasma torch using a metal spindle. The spindle holds the torch at a precise distance, so that as the torch cuts out the circle, the radius is exact. He ensures that the cutout is as close to the edge of the copper sheet as possible to minimize waste. With the cutting done, he examines the circular blank. The plasma cutting has left the edges a bit ragged. To smooth them, he clamps the copper blank in a lathe. He taps the blank with a rubber mallet to center it between the clamping chucks. He checks to confirm that the blank is positioned correctly. He lubricates a cutting tool and moves it against the spinning blank. It trims the circumference, creating a cleaner edge and removing any flaws. He files the rim of the copper blank to make it smooth and even. Using fine abrasive sandpaper, he finishes the edge. With the imperfections removed, the copper blank is unlikely to crack as it's formed into a saucepan with sloping sides. Two craftsmen now press a roller against the copper blank so that it conforms to the shape of a mold that's part of one of the clamping chucks. This process is called metal spinning. While one craftsman moves the roller across the copper blank, the other applies pressure. They must shape the saucepan in 8 to 10 passes. The pan has now taken shape, but the forming process has left fine lines on the surface. So, as it continues to spin, the coppersmith sands it smooth. He lubricates a cutting tool to prevent friction and overheating as he precisely trims the rim of the saucepan. This gives the pan the desired height. The cutting leaves the edges very sharp, so he files them smoother. This copper saucepan is ready for the cast iron handle. Cast iron has much less thermal conductivity than copper, so the heat from the pan will travel more slowly up the handle. The craftsperson clamps the handle to the saucepan. This holds it tightly in place as he drills rivet holes through both the iron handle and the copper pan. He removes the clamp and bolts the handle to the pan temporarily. This stabilizes it for the drilling of the second rivet hole. He inserts the rivet in the second hole from the inside of the pan. He heats the tail of the rivet to soften it. He transfers the pan to an anvil. Using a pneumatic hammer, he flattens the first rivet. He removes the temporary bolt and installs the second rivet. He heats the pan over an intense flame and melts a tin bar onto the bottom. He spreads the molten tin up the sides of the pan using a cotton rag saturated with flux. The flux chemical cleans the copper and allows the tin to flow more smoothly. The tin lining will prevent acidic foods from leaching raw copper into the food. The heat of the tinning flame has caused some discoloration and blemishes. The coppersmith removes them using a cotton buffing wheel and polishing compound. As he continues, the polishing takes the copper to a high sheen. This copper saucepan is now ready for the cooktop. But first, he pounds a steel stamp into the bottom of the pan to set the company logo on it. A couple of hours in the making, a copper pan should last at least a century. And if it's well cared for, it shouldn't show its age.